Minister, Owen Keegan showed utter contempt for students and the crisis they face in terms of accommodation costs. But can I put it to you that the government haven't been far off in its contempt in terms of its failure to address the student poverty crisis and the cost of student accommodation. There are no measures whatsoever in the budget to deal with the extortionate cost of accommodation and the student accommodation crisis, and nothing in terms of reducing the student contribution charge, the fees.
Minister.
Of course, the Deputy can put it to me, and of course he won't be surprised when I utterly reject it. I've already given my view on Mr Keegan's comments, and I won't take up time in relation to that, but I think we've taken a number of measures, including a number of measures in recent days, to try and assist student welfare, student mental health and student incomes. I would make the point in relation to the pandemic unemployment payment and the very significant income support we provided to students over a sustained period of time, and that was the right and proper policy decision. But if you actually look at direct income that we can provide and financial assistance that we can provide to students, look at our record on the Student Assistance Fund. Look at the fact that since I've become Minister, we have provided €16 million more in terms of the Student Assistance Fund. I was talking to the President of the UCC Students' Union in recent days about the challenges there. We've provided €1.2 million now to a Student Assistance Fund in UCC. Look at the changes we made yesterday in relation to the SUSI grants. I'm sure you'll want us to do more and go further, and I accept that, but they are good changes. Indeed, changes that probably many of your own constituents will benefit from in terms of changing the distance rule, so that actually many people could now end up seeing their student grant rise by up to €2,000 next year as we drop the 45-kilometre rule to 30 kilometres. The first maintenance grant increase in many a year as well. The first income threshold increase, so that more families qualify. 17,000 free laptops provided to students, recognising the shortfall there. 5 million more for mental health as well. Period products being provided free in a number of our universities. The contraception changes we made yesterday, which will benefit young people, many of whom are students, and the public transport measures. So certainly accept we've an awful lot more to do. We had a lengthy discussion earlier about purpose-built, college-owned student accommodation that's affordable. I'm happy to come back to that in the supplementary. I accept we've a road to travel, but I think we took a number of measures yesterday that will help students, starting with the most vulnerable, the most in need, and I think that's the most socially just way to approach it.
Sir, first of all, the student grants have not gone up for, I think, nearly a decade. So the small bit of catch-up we saw in the budget yesterday doesn't go nearly anywhere near dealing with the cost of living and particularly the accommodation cost hikes that we have seen. In Dublin, in 3 months alone this summer, there was a 5.6% rise in rents. That was on top of nearly 5% the year before. Average rents in Dublin are running at about €2,000 a month. And then there's the issue of fees. USI, ourselves and others have been asking you to get rid of the student contribution charge. Whenever I meet students, whether they are undergraduates or whether they are postgrads, they talk about the fees. People paying €15,000 to do psychology or allied health professional PhD and master's courses, and then the bulk of students paying €3,000 a year. They asked you even to reduce it by £1,000, nothing. Minister, so I put it to you that with the cost of living increases, the fees and so on, student poverty is not addressed in any way in the budget.
To reply.
So no one budget solves all of the challenges that people face, but I do think your critical analysis of the budget would have more validity if you acknowledge some of the positive steps that we have taken and have taken in recent weeks, days and months, whether that is the very significant investment that has been widely welcomed by students in relation to the Student Assistance Fund, the very significant increase in mental health funding, the free laptops that have been provided, over 17,000 laptops, recognising that the cost of a laptop was a barrier to some people for participation. Yes, I accept we have a way to go on SUSI grants. I won't argue with you in relation to that at all, but we did take a very significant step yesterday. The package we announced of SUSI measures yesterday in a full year would cost €60 million. And yes, I'd like to see the registration fee reduced, but if you were in my position and you had access to a certain amount of additional funding for the year, I think it's appropriate that we start by actually increasing the grants for people who are on lower incomes. I would have thought you would have agreed with this, rather than actually reducing the fees for the son or daughter of a much more wealthy person. So I think we made a socially just decision yesterday in prioritising the resources of those most in need.
Minister, you gave yesterday €63 million to KBC and Ulster Bank as a wave goodbye present as they exit the Irish market, right? So please don't tell me about the 60 million, which is less than that you gave to students. The fact of the matter is the students are going to be outside DCC today. I'll be speaking as will others here. And the reason they're on the streets, and you only have to talk to students. I mean, the issue of student accommodation 10 years ago was not an acute crisis the way it is now. The issue of fees is now a major barrier to us actually dealing with some of the skills shortages that we have in this country. And anybody who's trying to do a master's or postgrad will tell you they are crippled with fees. The student nurses still not being paid for placement. Right, so student poverty is a reality, and it's not just bad for the students, it's actually bad for our society.
Thank you, Deputy.
And it was not seriously addressed, and there were a lot more giveaways for the banks and SARP and God knows what else in the budget than there was for students.
Deputy Griffin,
and when Deputy Boyd Barrett talks, when you talk to students, I talk to students all of the time. They're not the preserve or the ownership of any one side of this house. I talk to them all of the time. And we do need to do more in relation to student supports. And we took very significant actions yesterday. It doesn't rectify everything in one budget, but it is a statement of intent by this government. And we will very shortly, before the end of the year, bring forward proposals in relation to a sustainable funding model for higher education. And let me be clear, in case anyone wants to misrepresent it, it will not involve student loans or any of those other failed policies that have been tried in other jurisdictions, including other jurisdictions on this island, that have been bad for students and have left students indebted as they leave our university. We took a number of actions yesterday, student assistance funds, SUSI grants, free laptops, mental health, changes to the adjacent grants to actually directly do exactly what you're saying. There are some students whose SUSI grant will rise by €2,000 as a result of those changes yesterday. That's a direct recognition of the cost of living issues that we need to address. And yes, we have more to do, and we're happy to work with students on this.
We're running out of time, but we have time.